Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today we are joined by Cory, the creator of WitchBorn, a game that combines the sort of RPGs with intense miniatures. And also he's a veteran in advertising industry, turned into a game designer. And Cory will bring us into his journeys from like his first Kickstarter campaign to the challenge of building his own board game from the scratch. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Cory.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So can you kind of first start out by sharing with our audience, like how did you start like creating this board game of yours?
Boy, it's a crazy long story. I since I've been little, I was creating games. I remember I was 5 years old and my dad and my older cousins were playing Risk, if you know that old board game. And they said, "Oh, you're too little to play this." And I insisted, and I beat them all. And from that time on, I just started inventing games. And the first one was, once I figured out the strategy for Risk, I had to build a better Risk. And so I made a fantasy-based version of that, and that was a lot of fun. It took many years, somewhere on a shelf. But my background is advertising, and kind of the game changer for me growing up is when I learned to play D&D in high school. And, I'm just, background in comic books and that kind of stuff. It was just the perfect game for me. It had the strategy and the intrigue and the storytelling, because story is like so important to me. And, after many years in advertising, the old guys are always the first ones to get laid off. So
sorry to hear that.
This is actually, we're going into our 11th year here. And I know games really only have about a 6-month lifespan after working on Mattel for years. But we've managed to hang in there for 11 years. And I basically wanted to create a game that took what I loved about Dungeons and Dragons, but made it a little more accessible to everybody.
Okay. So can you kind of explain to the audience the concept of the WitchBorn, and is there any particular personal experience that you also drew from when you designed the game? And if you have actually the physical game with us today,
yes. So the core set, this is kind of like the third version of it, but the core set is an Perdition with the pit, and that's kind of where you start. And so I guess for me, it's not so much about game mechanics that get in the way of playing role-playing games. Players are trying to defeat the system. They're trying to come up with little loopholes to get unfair advantages in the game and that kind of stuff. And I'm just about the story. I want everybody to be heroes and go and defeat the bad guys. And I want it to be a challenge and a strategy. But creating that much content for like a game like D&D, I was a dungeon master for years. And creating that much content is almost a full-time job. And so the big thing that I did with the WitchBorn was I made sure that you didn't need a dungeon master. So you play without that game referee, and there's a series of apps that help with the storytelling. And so if last night we were playing in the Wandering Forest, this is a forest where the trees are enchanted and they can actually move and block your way as you're trying to escape the forest. And so it's teammates working together to try and escape safely. And the app comes into play because there's little encounters that pop up. There's things you notice, things that happen to you. The WitchBorn are terrible undead creatures, and you'll run into them in the course of the game, and you have to work together to defeat them, and so forth. So it becomes much more about immersing yourself in that story rather than, trying to reach 20th level or whatever, or amassing the most treasure or whatever. It's really heroic adventures.
I see. And also integrating the tech with your game. I think that was a pretty bold move. When you first started doing that, was there a lot of other people in the industry also have tried to incorporate that into their games?
So I can't prove it, but I think we were kind of the first. And the reason being was we had like a deck of cards that had these random encounters, but you can only fit so much on a card, right? You can only fit so much detail. And if you want to put monster statistics and you want to have the monsters have motivations of what they're doing, needed a way to make it run a little deeper. I wonder if this will read on the so last night we were playing Wandering Forest, and the encounters that pop up are totally random. So I'll hit draw. It's really not showing up well, is it? I'll hit draw and it will be random. Oh, let's see, get it away from the sun.
You'll have the story. Okay.
And so it'll have the information that I read to the players. And then depending on how they react to it, one person takes on the role of the marshal, and they say, well, this happens, and that's explained down there. And if you run into a monster, let's go to one where we know there was a monster. There may be a picture.
Oh, okay.
And then the statistics for that monster that you're going to run.
I see. Okay.
And so it's what makes the app so important to the game is we can play that same adventure, Wandering Forest, 17 times in a row, and there's so many different encounters that can happen. It's going to play differently every time. Or I can jump from Wandering Forest to enter Perdition, to the pit, to all these different adventures that we have, and they're always going to play different, even though you've played it maybe once before. And you're going to start to make friends with other characters and have comrades and work cooperatively together, which is really the ultimate goal of the game.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. And I know when you initially launched the product, I think you also go through the crowdfunding and launch it and found it on Kickstarter as well. How was your experience working with Kickstarter, and any story that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I've just recently done some analysis, and Kickstarter has been my most successful way to raise funds to date. And I've learned a lot of things over the years. And I went to a seminar at Gen Con before I launched my first Kickstarter, and I've done 5 now. And I went to a seminar, and they said, figure out all your costs. And they said, packaging and shipping and everything, and then the production, and multiply that by a minimum of 4, because that's what that's what your MSRP is going to be. And man, is that true? Because the first couple Kickstarters, my goal was to break even. This was a hobby,
Yeah.
right? This wasn't really a real business, where I was making a lot of money or anything. I was just trying to break even and I lost my shirt. I raised, I want to say on my second Kickstarter, I might have raised $20,000 or something like that.
Mhm.
And it probably cost me 40 or 50 to
Fulfill. Yeah.
to fulfill everything, and it's like, okay, well, I'm just doing this out of the kindness of my heart. So, you get business smart after a while, but the other thing is you make relationships, right? You find somebody who's enthusiastic about your product, and maybe they can get you a deal on printing, or they can recommend, a better shipping source. Like when I broke into Kickstarter, like, I don't know, ShipStation existed. But ShipStation is like the greatest thing for an independent person, because you can get Amazon rate of pricing and on shipping. And man, I was paying some of these big boxes. These things are,
it's pretty big.
10 pounds. There's a lot in there. And I was paying $25-$30 to ship those out. And so, with ShipStation, got it down, under 10 in most cases. And so it makes a huge difference, right, on your bottom line. You're not working for free anymore.
For sure. Yeah. What are some of the major challenges that you encounter? It sounds like you mentioned about the shipping and also getting the right amount as far as the the raise amount. Any other particular challenge you face?
The hardest thing, I think, for most people is there's a lot that goes into a game. You've got to know, writing and marketing and photography and production and shipping. And I had kind of a head start because I was in advertising. This is like what I've worked towards all my life, right? I started off as a wannabe comic book artist. And so I went to school for illustration. And so I knew illustration, and I did some comics, and I did many years illustration, and I realized the computer was kind of where I wanted to be. And I kind of self-taught myself to be an advertising art director, and that's where my career really took off. But then I learned, I had the privilege of working with some of the greatest photographers in the entire world, because I was working on big brands like Goodyear and John Deere and Kraft Foods and different things. And so I worked with these geniuses, and I learned photography and so much from them. And so now it's, now I can take, this is actually my daughter on the cover, right? It's, I'm doing the photography, I'm doing the retouching, I'm doing all that stuff. So a person that's starting out on Kickstarter, they might not have access to all that. But I will tell you that there are constantly people coming out of school who have great talents, and they're looking for jobs, and you might be able to snag a really talented person and say, hey, I can't pay you, but if you do all the art, I will give you X. Or if you do all the, publishing or print production, I'll give you X, and so you can work out deals like that. And a lot of people have asked me for advice. I'm like, well, I do it myself, but go talk to my friend here who's going to be doing a Kickstarter, and he needs help with photography. And if you want to be a photographer, go do photography. And
that's also a different way to really leverage the global economy, and you can always hire people from overseas with a much cheaper cost of living compared to United States.
Yeah,
as well.
That's true. Like I've had I've hired miniature sculptors in Italy, and miniature sculpting is very, very expensive because it's a very time-consuming thing. But you find somebody who's willing to do it for maybe $100, $200 a figure. Now you can start to mass produce those and actually, recoup the money.
I see. And I want to switch our interview and talk more about the business aspect of the board game as well. What are some of the things that surprised you when you first started your own game company?
Yeah, well, there's everything surprised me, right?
Okay.
I am by nature a very shy person, and that does not help you. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to get multiple quotes on things. You've got to you can't be pushed over. They will tell you. I don't know. This is a good example. They will tell you things can't be done. And the game uses really large maps. And I will not even be able to show this on screen. But this is one panel, and it folds out.
Oh, whoa, it is very big.
Or this way, and then it's double the height of that. It takes up like an entire kitchen table. It's
Okay.
kind of the design. And they're all double-sided too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I can't tell you how many people said that can't be done. And I said, oh, where there's a will, there is a way. And I ran into, it was actually a small company in China, and they were eager, and they said, give us this job and give us a month, and we will figure out how to make this work. And they did it, and it was a very simple, elegant solution. And to give you an idea of the cost savings of doing it that way, originally, when I first did the Kickstarter back in 2015, those giant maps were printed on vinyl. And they were output almost like a billboard or something like that, because I had experience doing that. And the vinyl maps were great. They rolled up into tubes, but they were a pain to ship because they were kind of oblong, and if you didn't wrap them real good, they might pop open and get bent up. And they were going to charge me the same amount to print two-sided maps. Well, say this more elegantly. To print a one-sided map, the best price I could get was $17.
Well, per map.
To print it two-sided, I wasn't going to get a break. They were going to charge me $34. And I went to talk
that's
to
really
a lot
high.
Yeah. So to put a $34 thing in a set and know that you got to mark it up 4 times, it makes it impractical, right?
Yeah.
And so these double-sided cardboard maps, the minute I got that, it brought the cost down to $4 per map.
Oh, whoa, that's a significant cost saving.
Yeah.
Almost 80%.
Yeah. And so it's that kind of stuff that you just gotta work and work and work. And there's so much to it, right? Like I do custom dice for the game. And so here's a preview of some new stuff that's coming out on the next crowdfunding. These are clear dice with kind of like cellophane in there. And if I shot some light through there, or you look at it in sunlight, they're really cool looking. But to find somebody who can do that kind of stuff, that's half the battle. And then do it effectively. Here was another, this can't be done. I designed like a really weird pip on these dice that wraps around. So it's a little
very interesting. Okay, for our listeners, if you want to see what it look like, please visit our YouTube channel. It's really hard to describe. Can you try to describe this dice that you're holding up?
Yeah, rather than little circles for the pips, it is little grooves. And so I'm holding up like the side with a 6, and the side with the 6, the little grooves wrap around to the side with a 3 on it, and there's only 3 grooves on that side. Oh. And they told me that absolutely couldn't be done. And I said, oh yeah, it can be done. And so again, find a place that is willing to listen to you, and I don't mind paying a little bit extra if I get something that's unique and different and exciting. And I mean, a set of those, you get 5 dice with those. A set of those cost me about $1 to produce.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
And then I can turn around and sell it for $10. And so because it has a perceived value and so it's profitable.
Yeah, and I think your game seem around like a dark fantasy game, if I describe it.
Yeah, the idea behind it, the WitchBorn are basically in-game. There was this terrible thing called the Cataclysm, and it opened a rift between worlds. And these dark spirits can enter our world, and they can inhabit any fresh corpse. So it's kind of like a zombie vampire. Right?
Zombie vampire. Okay.
And it's very dark because you basically have to learn to band together and fight these things. And the goal of the game is to kind of take the world back from the WitchBorn. What gets a little disturbing when you're playing the game is if one of the characters dies in game, like one of your friends dies in game, they become WitchBorn and they turn on you.
Oh, that's a very unique twist.
Yeah. And so it's very upsetting to players when they lose their character and they become WitchBorn. So everybody controls more than one character because we know it's inevitable that somebody is going to die. And that's one of the things that's decided by the app. If you get wounded, your arm might get lopped off, your eye might get poked out, you might just be knocked out. That's the most common thing, but very rarely your character may die from a wound.
I see.
You become WitchBorn, and so it's just a different kind of level to the tension.
I see. How will you describe your typical audience, the one that is currently playing your games or backing you on Kickstarter? Are they more? It sounds like it's more of a mature cloud.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, kids tend to grow up on video games, and so sometimes they're introduced to Dungeons and Dragons or a game like the WitchBorn later on, like in high school and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been really interesting. When we do conventions, we do as many demos as we can, right? And I remember at Origins a few years ago, it was getting near closing time, and like this mob of teenagers rush into the booth, and they're like, "Okay, what do we need?" And they just start buying everything. There's like 6 kids, and like, "What do we need?" And they had just run a demo out in the game hall, and they wanted to make sure to buy it before the hall closed so that they could take it home and play, because they had been brought up on video games and they never really played anything like that. And now, fast forward 3-4 years, now a couple of those kids work for me. So they help me run demos at shows and stuff. So
I see. Nice.
but I would say the average audience is a little more mature, like 30 plus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it goes up into we've got players in their 70s, so
I see.
it's it speaks to something nostalgic to them because they grew up in D&D and that kind of stuff, and so they're just trying to recapture that fun of when they used to play.
I see. And when you're doing marketing, like what has worked well for you in reaching those audiences?
The best thing by far has been crowdfunding, and I think just recently GameFound announced that they are now the biggest crowdfunding site for games. And so I think I've got a Kickstarter coming out this year.
Yes.
And that's going to put a nice bow on everything. I've got a prototype here. Of course, it's on the bottom. And these are all heavy. Whoops. And Wailing Citadel is going to be the new one. Okay. And then the back side of that one is Wandering Forest, which is going to be, it's a double-sided map again. That's the one we were kind of testing out the other night. And so that's going to come out. I'm probably going to do that one on GameFound. So that's been sort of my best. And then, ironically, shows have always been a good way to build that new audience. But what I find is, unless I find a way to keep those people engaged over the year, I really don't hear from them again until the next show, until next year.
Yeah.
And so one of the great things about COVID was we figured out how to take the game online.
Yeah.
And so we play in regular groups online, and that is a great way to keep people engaged. I tell everybody at shows, owners are allowed to play online for free. They can use the maps however they want.
Yeah.
And all the tokens and everything are there. But if you want to join in on our scheduled games, please do. And that has really, really changed the way things work. It's even, I'm learning that in this modern age, people want PDF rule books rather than printed rule books. and so my early Enter Perdition books, I'm down to probably my last 25 sets with books, and then I'm going to go to all PDF.
Okay.
All PDF versions. And the other great thing about PDFs is somebody finds a typo, somebody finds a weird loophole of how things should interact and it doesn't quite work. I can send out an update, and with my website, it just automatically broadcasts that.
Oh, that's true. You don't need to print another one.
Yeah, it just broadcasts that to all the owners, and they're good.
I see. Okay, that's very interesting. So besides it sounds like you have a new campaign you're currently working on. What else do you have in the pipeline this year?
So this is going to be a year of refocusing for me. I kind of made my business plan over the holidays when family was in town. I promised I wasn't going to work because I work too much, and spent some quality time, but can't stop my brain from going. And the smartest thing for me financially would have been to put that prototype up on crowdfunding and get that going in January, because that was the original plan.
Yeah.
But I said, because I am running out of the printed books, I need to get my PDF situation just squared away, get it perfect, get everything where it needs to be. And I'm a person I know I can't be perfect, but I try and be perfect. And because we've got this great online following, that has become my playtesting group, right? And I found out what works and what doesn't work and what people don't like and what people love and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to rewrite all the books. I'm going to update. It's not going to be just like a, turn it into a PDF and say I'm done. I'm going to look at everything and just say, what can I do to make this better? And the books are going to be about 2 to 3 times as long as they were originally, with a lot more story background that people can draw from. And so I'm going to get that done kind of in the first quarter. The second quarter, then I'll be ready for that big crowdfunding push. We've got some trade shows along the way. And then those apps that I was showing you, those need a refresh as well. Even though there may be 50 optional things that can happen, I love to update those, and so people can't memorize and know exactly what's going on every time they play. I want to keep it fresh, and so that's going to be some work. And again, that's not profitable. That's probably not business smart, but I think I owe it to my customers who've followed me for so many years to give them the best product that they can have.
I see. That sounds like a very meaningful project for the brand, for sure. And as well, wrapping up today's interview, if you have to share just one piece of advice with someone that's getting started in the toys or game industry, what would that be?
Don't have people tell you no. It can always be done, and if you are passionate and you care, you can figure out a way to get it done. And if I listen to all the bad advice I got over the last 10, 11 years, this crazy little hobby that started in my basement would not be, a brand being played in Europe and Australia and Japan and, all the United States and Canada. It's something you got to be passionate about and push through.
For sure. Thank you for that's a really good piece of advice there for the listener. And for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you have enjoyed today's conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resources, tips, and the latest update within the toys and game industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag ToyBusinessUnbox. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestion for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and keep bringing joy to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Jason.